Frontline Assessment, Inside the Signal War. How Kyiv hacked the Kremlin's ultimate deterrent. Good evening. Tonight's development is a case study in 21st century deterrence. It involves no missile launches, no troop surges, but something far more subtle and potentially just as dangerous. Strategic signaling in the shadow of nuclear ambiguity. What US, NATO, and intelligence insiders had tracked and prepared for has now occurred, compressing months of tension into a decisive few hours. This event forced emergency consultations across Western capitals and triggered silent alerts in secure command centers worldwide, fundamentally altering the calculus of escalation. The trigger was not an action, but an ominous silence from Moscow. Russia has been aggressive, yes, but historically deliberate, following a pattern of escalation, pause, and recalibration, a rhythm of psychological pressure. The alarm this week was triggered by the absence of that pattern. The routine messaging, the background diplomatic noise, the expected communications traffic, all of it fell silent. In my decades covering conflicts from the Cold War to the present, I've learned that when the Kremlin goes quiet, it is never neutral. It is preparatory. Silence is its own form of communication, and it almost always precedes a loud and consequential move. Early today, Western intelligence detected abnormal command and control activity within Russian strategic systems, including internal signaling pathways, dormant for over a year. These are not everyday systems. They are the levers of supreme command, engaged only to signal specific intent, deterrence, intimidation, or strategic misdirection. Observers were left to decipher which category this factor, if it was a deliberate blend of all three. The critical point is this: when a nuclear-armed state alters its strategic posture without explanation, every major capital must pay acute attention. Posture is not about the weapons themselves. It is a window into intent. And as the Cuban Missile Crisis taught us, misunderstood intent is how history spirals toward catastrophe. The U.S. warning issued tonight was extraordinary. It was not routine, not symbolic, but urgent. Officials briefed after emergency consultations described Russia's move as calculated, destabilizing, and, most crucially, designed to provoke hesitation. This gets to the core of deterrence theory. As articulated by scholars like Thomas Schelling, coercion works only if the target hesitates, if it creates paralysis through fear of the unknown. Ukraine, however, demonstrated a masterclass in modern asymmetric response. They did not hesitate. Within hours of detecting the Russian shift, Kyiv initiated a sophisticated cyber intelligence operation. This was not routine monitoring or passive defense. Multiple Western officials confirm Ukraine launched coordinated actions targeting the very connective tissue of Russia's strategic signaling, the communication nodes, information flows, and command visibility systems that had been placed on heightened readiness. Ukraine did not attack a weapon or a trigger. They targeted the central nervous system that gives those tools meaning and coordination. This is what made Washington's warning so urgent. Russia's move was not a symbolic gesture. It was an actionable step that narrowed decision windows and increased the risk of catastrophic miscalculation. Ukraine's response was a calibrated act of escalation, control. Think of this as strategic judo, a concept I've explored in my own writing on asymmetric conflict. Ukraine used Russia's own momentumist preparatory shift into a signaling posture against it. By disrupting the internal coordination required for that signal to be clear and authoritative, Ukraine effectively neutralized the escalation, without triggering a kinetic retaliation. This shows a profound evolution. Ukraine is no longer a passive reactor to Russian moves. It is an active shaper of the strategic battlefield, anticipating and countering moves in the digital and informational domains. This moment is particularly dangerous and revealing because of its context. Vladimir Putin is acting from a position of profound internal constraint, not strength. Inside the Kremlin, competing factions pull in different directions. Hardliners demand more aggressive escalation. Security elites crave total control. Economic technocrats seek stability, and regional power brokers desire predictability. Putin is balancing these demands while managing a war that has become longer, costlier, and less predictable than ever planned. A leader in such a position does not make sudden strategic moves from a place of confidence, but from vulnerability. In this light, nuclear signaling is not primarily an expression of power. It is a desperate tool for leverage, an attempt to fracture Western unity and freeze Ukrainian resolve through fear. The U.S. response, stating plainly that Russia's actions were inconsistent with strategic stability norms, is the diplomatic equivalent of drawing a bright line. It is a private deterrence message made public to eliminate ambiguity. It echoes the clear-headed, direct communication that prevented disaster during the Cold War's most tense standoffs. Meanwhile, President Zelensky's measured but firm address to the nation struck the exact right tone. His message that Ukraine acts to protect life and prevent future catastrophe was a deliberate. Is Russia building escalatory leverage to trade away later? Is it attempting to splinter Allied coordination through fear? Or, most worryingly, is it trying to shorten everyone else's decision timelines, forcing reactive rather than deliberate responses? Today, Ukraine took that gambit off the table. By acting decisively in the cyber intelligence domain, they sent a dual message. To Moscow, we see your play and can disrupt it. And to Washington and Brussels, we can be trusted with the grave. Counter-narrative to Russia's intimidation. It framed Ukraine's actions as responsible and defensive, a crucial move in the battle of narratives. The concerning fact is that Russia's signaling move was not isolated. It was accompanied by increased cyber probing, expanded military exercises, and activated disinformation channels all within the same tight window. When Moscow moves multiple pieces simultaneously, it indicates a larger test is underway. Analysts are weighing several possibilities. Responsibility of escalation management. This trust is the difference between being a supported partner and a sidelined proxy. As we speak, intelligence sources indicate Russian command traffic has not returned to baseline, and expected follow-up signaling has not materialized. The Kremlin is in a period of recalculation. This pause is not calm. It is a fraught calculation. Ukraine understands this and is not misreading it. What happens next hinges on Russia's coming moves. If Moscow escalates openly, this moment will be remembered as the time when nuclear intimidation lost its terrifying mystique. If it retreats quietly, Ukraine and its allies have demonstrated a disciplined, coordinated readiness that will deter future tests. Tonight, the Kremlin appears uncertain. Its silence is heavy with deliberation. Russia has been reminded of a lesson it has learned before, but hoped was forgotten. That intimidation is not control, that silence can be challenged, and that Ukraine is no longer merely a subject of history, but an active author of its own destiny. The balance tonight held, not through luck, but through a decisive demonstration of resolve, capability, and strategic clarity. We will be here, watching every detail of the next phase unfold. If you want to keep getting the news the Kremlin is trying to hide, if you believe the truth can't wait, then don't leave just yet. Click subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a single update, because when silence comes from Moscow, the world needs to hear from us even louder. Thank you for being here. See you in the next alert.